Welcome to one of the most unsettling cases ever recorded in the history of Louisiana. Before we begin, please leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact time you're listening to this story. We're always curious to see where and when these documented accounts reach. It all began with a small notice in the St. Charles Herald on April 14, 1847. A short column placed between advertisements for cotton gins and medicinal tonics read, "Missing, Mrs. Evelyn Duval, wife of plantation owner Gerard Duval, last seen on the evening of April 10th. Reward offered for information leading to her safe return." What first appeared to be a common disappearance would unfold into one of Louisiana's most haunting mysteries, one that official records later erased, but whose whispers still drift through the cypress swamps of St. James Parish. The Duval plantation stood grandly beside the Mississippi River, a tall white mansion with 12 wide columns stretching across its front. On the surface, it seemed to reflect everything the antebellum South valued: wealth, order, and strict social rank. Parish documents show that Gerard Duval inherited the estate in 1839 after his father's death. Bank ledgers from New Orleans confirm he had since expanded it, buying nearby land and increasing his enslaved labor force to over 100 by 1845. Evelyn had arrived from Charleston in 1844, the daughter of a wealthy shipping merchant who arranged the marriage to strengthen family trade connections. The wedding notice printed in the New Orleans Picayune described her as a woman of great beauty and refinement, destined to brighten Louisiana society with her grace. But letters discovered in 1952, written by Evelyn to her cousin in Virginia, tell a very different story. "The air here suffocates," she wrote 3 months after her arrival. "The house feels like a museum where I am both exhibit and visitor." Parish records mention that Henry Carter was purchased at the New Orleans slave market in January of 1846. His bill of sale, later found among Duval family papers during an academic survey in 1964, listed him as male, about 26 years old, literate, skilled in carpentry, and of steady character. A rare handwritten note believed to be Gerard's added, "To serve in house and oversee library organization. For a time, life at the plantation appeared calm." Account books from 1846 show profits rising from sugarcane production. Gerard Duval's name appeared often in parish meeting notes, urging tighter rules on the movement of enslaved people between plantations. A journal kept by Margaret Fontaine, the wife of a neighboring planter, mentions seeing Evelyn at social events, quiet to the point of invisibility, yet always observant. Her Christmas entry from 1846 notes that Mrs. Duval seemed unusually distracted during the sermon and excused herself before dinner was served. When spring arrived in 1847, small cracks began to appear in the plantation's carefully maintained order. A ledger dated March 3rd mentions disciplinary action for Henry C. found in mistress's private sitting room without permission. Another entry from March 21st records his reassignment to field labor as punishment. Yet by March 28th, another note reinstates him to household duty at mistress's insistence. On the night of April 10th, 1847, several events converged. According to the overseer's report, Gerard left for New Orleans on business, planning to return within 3 days. The plantation's weather log recorded heavy rain starting at sunset and continuing all night. The cook later told investigators that Mrs. Duval had asked for tea to be brought to the library around 8 p.m. By morning, both Evelyn Duval and Henry Carter were gone. What followed was one of the largest searches ever seen in St. James Parish. Gerard returned from New Orleans and immediately organized search parties to comb the swamps and check every road leaving the plantation. The New Orleans Daily Crescent reported on April 17th that 50 men and several dogs were scouring the wilderness for Mrs. Duval, feared abducted by a runaway slave. Notices spread as far as Natchez and Mobile. The official version quickly took shape. "Respected planter's wife taken by slave," read the Baton Rouge Gazette on April 21st. The article quoted Girard saying Henry had shown signs of instability and an unhealthy fixation on Mrs. Duval, caused by their shared love of books. A reward notice soon followed, offering $1,000 for Evelyn's return and the capture, dead or alive, of the man Henry, accused of taking her against her will. But inconsistencies appeared almost right away. Rachel, Evelyn's lady's maid, told parish officers that her mistress had been quietly packing a small travel case for several days, adding items bit by bit to avoid notice. Her statement was later removed from the official file, but a copy survived in the private notes of Sheriff Thomas Wilkinson, found after his death in 1861. An inventory of Evelyn's possessions also revealed missing clothing, personal effects, and several books, including volumes of Voltaire and Rousseau ordered from New Orleans the year before. Girard claimed these too had been stolen by Henry, further proof of his guilt. As the search continued, a riverboat captain came forward saying he had seen a white woman and a black man board his vessel 10 miles downstream from the Duval Plantation on the morning of April 11th. They had bought passage to New Orleans and left the boat there. The captain said they spoke little, sat close together, and the woman wore a dark veil the entire trip. When asked if she appeared forced or afraid, he reportedly replied, "No more than any woman traveling with a man." The trail went cold in New Orleans. Despite an intense search through the city, especially in areas known to shelter runaways or free people of color, no solid trace was found. Rumors spread that they had escaped aboard a ship bound for Haiti, though no records matched their descriptions. Months later, public interest faded. In June, the Picayune hinted that the Duval marriage had been troubled and that cruelty might have driven Evelyn to flee. Girard threatened legal action, and newspapers quickly returned to the abduction version. By the year's end, the story was nearly forgotten. Girard sold the plantation in December 1847 and left for France, citing painful memories. 2 years later, in 1849, the mansion burned down, reportedly from lightning, though locals whispered arson. The case might have stayed buried if not for a strange discovery in 1958. During renovation of a French Quarter townhouse, workers uncovered a sealed tin box hidden in a wall. Inside was a water-damaged journal inscribed "Property of E.D." The book was sent to Tulane University, where historians dated it to the mid-19th century through ink and paper tests. Though only fragments survived, they told a story very different from the official one. One early entry read, "G treats his books with more kindness than he has ever shown me. The new man H understands their worth and speaks of authors I never expected anyone here to know." Another said, "H and I discussed Rousseau today while G worked at the mill. He has found ways to learn despite every barrier set against him." Later entries grew darker. The way G looks at H, with suspicion, with malice. "I fear what will happen. G struck me today when I objected to H's reassignment to the fields. He said I'd grown too familiar with the servants." The final legible passage, likely from April 1847, revealed everything. "We have agreed. When G leaves for New Orleans, the riverboat at dawn, H says there are people who can help us reach Philadelphia. I take only what cannot be replaced. My heart races with fear and hope." The journal reignited historical debate. A 1962 article in the Journal of Southern History proposed that the Duval case might have been a rare instance of a voluntary interracial escape, though not all scholars accepted that view. In 1964, researchers searching Philadelphia archives discovered a marriage record dated October 3, 1847, between Ellen Davis and Harold Carter, both listed as free colored persons, a label often used by mixed-race couples living in the North. The officiating minister's notes added, "The woman speaks with a Southern accent, though she claims Charleston birth. Husband alert, watches door. Fear clear. Records show Harold Carter opened a small carpentry business in Philadelphia's 7th Ward, known for its free black community. The business lasted until 1853, when the Carters apparently moved to Canada after the Fugitive Slave Act passed. No further records of them exist. In 1857, a brief item in New Orleans papers reported the death of Gerard Duval in Paris, closing, at least officially, one of the most mysterious love stories and disappearances in Louisiana's past. The notice stated that he had died without leaving any heirs, and that his property in France had gone to distant relatives. A single sentence at the end mentioned that he had never remarried after the tragic death of his wife. The most unsettling discovery in the entire case came in 1966, when an archaeological survey of what used to be the Duval Plantation revealed the remains of a root cellar under what had once been the main house. Among the burned debris, investigators found 3 small but striking items: a woman's pearl hair comb in the style of the 1840s, a carpenter's measuring tool with the initials HC carved into its handle, and most haunting of all, torn fragments of a letter addressed to "My Dearest E," hidden within the cellar wall. Experts at Louisiana State University examined the paper pieces and found several disturbing lines. One read, "Cannot delay any longer, he suspects, and said today he would sooner see you dead than..." The letter's date, only partly visible, read April 7th, 184, just days before the disappearance. What truly happened at the Duval Plantation in April 1847 remains one of Louisiana's enduring mysteries. The official records leave too much unsaid. Parish death records show no entry for Evelyn Duval, and there were no reports of remains discovered after she vanished. If Gerard Duval knew more about his wife's fate than he ever admitted, he took that secret with him to his grave in Paris. Folklore quickly filled the silence left by history. For decades, well into the early 1900s, residents of St. James Parish spoke of seeing a finely dressed white woman and a black man in elegant clothes walking hand in hand along the river path at dusk, near where the old plantation once stood. Witnesses said the pair never spoke, but always turned their heads to look back, as if something unseen was following close behind. In 1968, the last living person who claimed first-hand knowledge of the case passed away. Martha Johnson, 102 years old, had been born into slavery on a neighboring plantation. In a recorded interview from 1963 with researchers from Tulane University, she said her grandmother had worked as a kitchen servant at the Duval estate. Johnson recalled her grandmother saying that Miss Evine and Henry had been planning for months. They used to hide their notes inside book covers. When the master found one, that's when the trouble began. When asked what she believed had happened, Johnson answered, "My grandmother said there were 2 stories. The one people told, that they ran away together, and the other one, the one whispered by the house slaves, that the master caught them before they could flee, and they're still there, under the old house foundation." No one ever managed to prove either version. The site of the Duval Plantation remained empty until 1973, when the land was purchased for industrial use. Workers clearing the overgrown grounds soon reported strange happenings: tools vanishing, sudden chills in the air, and a constant faint smell of smoke around the old house site, even though no fires had burned there in over 100 years. The project was eventually abandoned. The company officially blamed environmental concerns, but former employees later said the executives refused to visit the property again after claiming to feel an overwhelming and inexplicable sense of dread. Today, the former Duval Plantation lies deep within a wildlife management area, reachable only by boat through the swampy waterways that have reclaimed what was once cultivated land. Visitors occasionally report hearing soft murmurs or faint conversations carried by the wind, though no one else is nearby. park rangers dismiss such tales as tricks of the wetlands and the imagination of people already familiar with the legend. In 2008, an LSU history professor searching for the original house foundation found a rusted metal box partly unearthed by flooding. Inside, he discovered a small leather-bound notebook, its pages mostly destroyed by water. The few legible lines included one haunting passage: "If we are not discovered, this journal will stay hidden, and we will start new lives under new names where we can live together. If the worst happens, if death or capture separates us, perhaps someone someday will find these words and know that what we shared was not what they claimed, not a crime or an abduction, but the only freedom either of us had ever known." The professor tragically suffered a stroke while still on site and could not mark the location. When a research team returned, the metal box was gone. His notes were later ruled unreliable because of his illness, and interest in the mystery faded once again. At the parish courthouse, the Duval file still sits in the section labeled Unresolved Crimes, Abduction. It contains only a handful of yellowed news clippings and the original missing person report. The other, more complex version of events, one of forbidden love, escape, and possibly murder, survives only in fragments scattered among university archives, folklore collections, and the fading memories of St. James Parish families. The truth about Evelyn Duval and Henry Carter remains uncertain. Did they reach freedom in the North? Were they victims of jealous rage, or are they now just restless spirits wandering the riverbank? Whatever the answer, their story still echoes in the thick Louisiana air, a reminder of a time when love across racial lines was both dangerous and defiant, when the boundary between captor and captive, victim and lover, blurred in the shadow of the grand old plantation house. Those who visit the overgrown site where the mansion once stood say the silence there feels heavy and alive, not the calm of an empty place, but a waiting stillness, as if the trees themselves are holding their breath, expecting the truth to finally surface. Perhaps, though, some stories are never meant to be finished. Maybe their missing pages are scattered intentionally, leaving us to wonder, and maybe that uncertainty serves as its own memorial to a woman who vanished as completely from history as she did from that storm-soaked plantation night in 1847, and to a man known to the world only as property who may have found a way to write his own ending. In 1979, a graduate student collecting oral histories in St. James Parish interviewed an elderly man named William Thibodeau, then 87. Thibodeau said his grandfather had joined the search party after Evelyn disappeared. Granddaddy said they weren't really looking for Mrs. Duval, he told the interviewer. Mr. Duval already knew where she was. They were hunting Henry. Thibodeau then shared a darker version of events. What my granddaddy said, and I ain't supposed to repeat it, was that Mrs. Duval was caught trying to leave. Mr. Duval locked her in the cellar for 3 days. Henry tried to free her, and that's when things went wrong. Those search parties weren't after 2 runaways. They were covering up what Mr. Duval had done. That account found partial support in a letter discovered in 1962 during the reorganization of the state archives, a confidential 1848 correspondence between the parish sheriff and the governor's office mentioning the regrettable Duval situation and suggesting the matter be left closed, given Mr. Duval's departure from the state and the political problems that further investigation might cause. In the 1980s, early ground-penetrating radar surveys of the old house site revealed underground irregularities consistent with a root cellar, but permission for excavation was denied. The property had changed hands many times, and the new owners refused to allow digging, claiming concern about disturbing historic remains. Then, in 1983, renovations at an old church in Philadelphia uncovered a hidden compartment beneath the pulpit containing documents from the Underground Railroad. Among them was a list of those who passed through the church between 1847 and 1851. One entry from November 1847 read, Ed and H.C. from Louisiana, provided with papers and funds for passage to Canada. Woman ill, recovering from injuries, both shaken but determined. This discovery renewed the belief that Evelyn and Henry might have escaped north. Yet, despite careful searches of Canadian records in Toronto and Montreal, no trace of them, or of anyone matching their names, was ever found. The mystery deepened further in 1991 when one of Gerard Duval's descendants in France found a locked journal among family heirlooms. Written in French between 1848 and 1857, it contained several mentions of Yvine. In one entry dated 1851, Gerard wrote, I received word today that she may have been seen in Montreal. I will not pursue. Let the dead bury their dead. What was taken from me cannot be returned, and I have sworn to forget that name and face. A later entry, written just before his death in 1857, was far more cryptic. I dream again of Louisiana, the house burning, her voice calling from below. I wake each night at 3, the hour we found the cellar door open. Some sins cannot be escaped even across an ocean. I feel her presence growing stronger as mine fades. Historians continue to argue over these words. Some believe they confirm that Evelyn survived and reached Canada. Others see them as an unspoken confession that Gerard had killed her and was haunted by guilt. Finally, in 2002, a hydrological survey of the Mississippi River Basin uncovered traces of accelerants in the soil near the old plantation, evidence suggesting the 1849 house fire was deliberate, not caused by lightning as once believed. The truth remains buried, somewhere between love and betrayal, life and legend, beneath the waters and whispers of Louisiana. More unsettling were the traces of human remains found deeper in the ground, though the fragmented nature of what was uncovered made it impossible to tell the age, gender, or number of people involved. When this discovery became known, descendants of families from nearby plantations came forward with old stories passed down through generations. 3 separate accounts told that in the weeks after Evelyn disappeared, enslaved workers from neighboring lands had been forced to dig at night on the Duval property. One witness recalled that most of the digging took place around the house foundation and the cellar. Those workers reportedly never spoke of what they had done or seen there, except in vague and cautious terms, even many years after slavery ended. A diary entry from 1865, written by a Union officer stationed in the parish during Reconstruction, recorded, "The locals, both white and colored, seem strangely unwilling to talk about the ruins of the D plantation. When I pressed an elderly black man for more, he only said that some ground won't grow crops right when it's been fed the wrong kind of seed." The meaning of his cryptic comment remains uncertain, though it is true that the land has remained barren since the Civil War began. In 2005, the Louisiana Historical Society ordered a complete review of all available evidence, bringing together historians, archaeologists, and forensic specialists. Their 300-page report, released in 2007, stated that while a single clear story could not be proven, the weight of evidence suggested that Evelyn Duval and Henry Carter most likely died on or near the plantation in April 1847, possibly killed by Gerard Duval or those acting under his orders, with their bodies hidden to avoid discovery. The report was not free from disagreement. A small group of researchers in the appendix argued that records from Philadelphia and Montreal, although not conclusive, offered a reasonable theory that the two may have escaped successfully. That version of the story has been embraced by a few historical novels and by a 2010 documentary film titled The Runaways of St. James Parish, which imagines Evelyn and Henry finding freedom and starting new lives in Canada. The next major development came in 2013 when improved ground-penetrating radar technology was finally allowed on the site. The survey revealed a structure about 30 yards from the main house foundation, possibly a small shed or storage cellar not listed in the old plantation documents. Before any digging could begin, however, massive flooding along the Mississippi covered the area, and when the water eventually withdrew, the landscape had shifted so much that the hidden structure could no longer be found. Even today, visitors to the wildlife management area report strange and uneasy feelings near the old plantation grounds. Park rangers have recorded many accounts of sudden drops in temperature, the sound of a woman crying, or the sight of two shadowy figures moving quickly through the trees at dusk. Scientists explain these events as imagination shaped by local legends, along with the natural sounds and shifting light of the swamp. But those who know the story often see them differently, as signs that whatever happened on that stormy April night in 1847, something of Eveline and Henry still lingers there, either as souls seeking justice or spirits unable to finish their escape. The Parish Historical Society now maintains a small exhibit about the case, showing both the abduction and escape versions without choosing between them. One display features a copy of Eveline's portrait from the Duval family collection in France, a young woman with dark hair and a serious expression, her eyes seeming to look past the artist toward something unseen. Next to it hangs an empty frame where Henry's portrait would be if one had survived, a haunting reminder of how completely enslaved people could vanish from written history, their lives left to be pieced together only through fragments and silences. In 2018, a historical fiction writer studying the case found a curious document in the archives of a small Montreal museum dated 1862. It appeared to be a death certificate for an Ellen Carter, later known as Nay Davis, listed as about 40 years old and born in the southern United States. It stated she was survived by her husband Harold and 2 children. Attempts to track their descendants have failed so far, as the family name is common and records from that era remain incomplete. What makes the document fascinating is a note in the margin, apparently added by the attending doctor. Patient expressed before death that certain items be kept for the historical record, including a journal and a pearl comb. Husband insisted they remain private. I respected his wishes as promised. No such items have ever been found in Canadian collections. Did Eveline and Henry escape and build a quiet life together, taking their secrets with them? Did they die on the Duval land, victims of the cruel system they dared to resist? Or is the truth somewhere between these versions, perhaps an initial escape followed by capture, or one surviving while the other did not? The mystery officially remains unsolved. The St. James Parish Sheriff's Department still lists the disappearance of Eveline Duval as an open case, though no new investigation has been made for over a century. In the Louisiana State Archives, her case number is linked with that of Henry Carter, one of the few official records showing that their fates were forever connected. Historians of the antebellum South note that the Duval case, though unusually well documented, likely reflects countless other stories now lost. Stories of boundaries crossed, freedom sought, and lives erased from the record. Dr. Elaine Montgomery, author of Silenced Histories, Race and Gender in the Antebellum South, wrote that the story of Eveline and Henry exists in the space between written history and legend, between what could be proven and what was known but never recorded, between the official tale that upheld society and the whispered truths that challenged it. Perhaps the most touching interpretation comes from a poem printed anonymously in a Montreal literary journal in 1870, titled simply E and H. Though no direct link to Eveline and Henry has been proven, its final verse reads, "Two souls who fled across the line, where freedom meets with fear, their names erased, their paths concealed, their whispers still we hear. Not ghost nor flesh, but memory, too stubborn to depart. The truth lies buried not in earth, but in the human heart, On moonless nights, when the Louisiana air feels heavy and the cypress trees stand like tall guards along the swamp's edge, locals still say the old plantation grounds keep their secrets well. Some claim to hear two voices murmuring, one with the refined tone of Charleston society, the other with the calm rhythm of a man who taught himself to read despite the laws. Whether these are the spirits of two lovers punished for defying their time, the echoes of a desperate flight into darkness, or simply the whisper of wind through Spanish moss may matter less than the story itself, and what it reveals about a nation still wrestling with the long shadows of its past. In 2021, on the 174th anniversary of their disappearance, a small marker was placed near where the Duval house once stood. It carries no names, no dates, no firm conclusions, only a brief inscription. For those who sought freedom by whatever path was offered, their story continues. The marker has become a quiet place of pilgrimage for historians, dreamers, and the curious. Visitors often leave with more questions than answers, but also with a deeper sense of how easily the past can disappear when the powerful wish it forgotten, and how stubbornly it can return through the smallest signs. A journal fragment, a carpenter's tool, a pearl comb, a whispered story, a name on a ship's list, a note in a margin. As for the truth of what happened to Eveline Duval and Henry Carter on that stormy April night in 1847, perhaps it is right that the mystery endures. In its uncertainty lies a reflection of a country still learning to face its own divided history, still uncovering stories long buried, still listening for voices once silenced but never fully gone. Some say that if you stand at the edge of the old Duval land on April 10th as night falls and the first drops of rain begin to fall, you can still hear them, not crying out in fear, but whispering in soft, determined tones of hope, of escape, of a future reclaimed. Not ghosts, but something far more lasting, a story that refuses to end, a truth still rising, piece by piece, into the light.